Hello, my name is Dr. Michael Smith, and welcome to the
Autoimmune Health Solution
website. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the Ancestral Autoimmune Protocol. If you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, you may have heard of the AIP, or the Autoimmune Protocol. And that's a really good place to start for most people. It's a protocol that says no grains, no beans, no nuts, no seeds, no eggs, no dairy, and for some people, no nightshades. Oh yeah, and no sugar and too much caffeine or alcohol and a lot of no's. So that's a really focused way to begin your journey of recovering from an autoimmune disease. Because I've had autoimmunity in my own life for about 6 years, I've learned that I can migrate between a more focused and more intense anti-inflammatory diet towards a more nutrient, high-fat, low-carb, kind of ketogenic diet, to a nutrient-dense but a slightly wider diet of choices like pseudograins, and also includes sometimes things like rice, especially white rice, or maybe some oats, maybe some dairy. But if I choose those things, then I know I need to be eating a lot of fermented foods. So I actually base the Ancestral Autoimmune Protocol on the evolution of human beings and the evolution of human eating habits. Now, from a scientific point of view, I think we can all agree that human beings are primates. And when you look at the evolution of primates to humans, one of the most amazing things that we all can mostly agree on that actually happened was certain apes went to the beach during ice ages and eventually learned to swim and then hunt for fish. Now, if you've never heard about that, it's called the aquatic ape theory, and I encourage you to check it out. It's got absolute scientific credibility. It's just not really taught in schools for some reason. The reason I bring that up is, what would be the medical benefit of eating a diet that would be basically what you would find at a beach during an ice age, which would be mostly raw fish and sea vegetables and plants that grow by melting ice and fast-moving water and things like that. So that's a pretty nutrient-dense, pretty focused, and very limited diet, but it turns out it's the most anti-inflammatory diet there is. So that's the first step of the Ancestral Autoimmune Protocol, is a very, very anti-inflammatory diet. If we were to think about the history again, ice ages melt, they go away, and the people, or early humans, that would be living at the beach would naturally migrate throughout the rest of the world, finding more things to eat. And one of the things that archaeology tells us is that humans initially started following wolves and ravens, perhaps other predators, to find the animal kills so that humans could find some pretty easy food, and most importantly, start bashing the bones apart for marrow. When you look at that kind of eating, I refer to that as a scavenger paleo diet. Now, the paleo diet's been pretty popular for a long time. I'm just encouraging people to focus on that high fat, some protein, lots of vegetables, but especially vegetables that are high in fiber. And nowadays we call that a ketogenic diet, and that has profound benefit for most of us, especially any of us who've eaten a lot of sugar and a lot of starch. The next diet would be what I would call a migratory or a tribal paleo diet. And that means that as we became more evolved, instead of just following wolves and ravens to find food, we would actually start following large herds of animals, kind of in a circle, in the migratory sense. And that would mean every summer we would probably end up in the same place to meet and gather with all of our friends. And in winter we would go off and trap and, try and survive the cold. If we kept going through those cycles of migration, we would naturally start seeing everyone put their poop and their, compost and things in the same place. And it wouldn't take human beings, and I don't think it took us very long, to figure out the basics of agriculture. So when I think of this more migratory or tribal paleo diet, it includes perhaps a few servings of beans once in a while if they're soaked properly. A few seeds, like especially pumpkin seeds, just because they're so nutrient dense that it's worth the risk, again, if you treat them or soak them properly. And this tribal paleo diet would also include some pseudograins. So as you can see, we're going from the Ice Age anti-inflammatory, very, very specific diet. Now we can include more things, higher fats, more starchy vegetables, but not too much to keep it ketogenic. And then we're moving towards this almost open diet where you can have a little bit of pseudograins, a little bit of seeds, and a little bit of beans. The fourth diet I call a healthy homesteader diet, and human beings around the world have been eating that way for probably 6,000 to 8,000 years. A healthy homesteader is someone who has chickens and pigs and cows and a big root cellar and a big garden and may even be growing some grains for winter and perhaps for the animals for winter as well. So again, this diet is a chance for you to enjoy once in a while some dairy, some rice, some oats, but you just need to make sure you're having enough of those fermented foods. Now, depending on your diagnosis and your medical condition, if you're doing fairly well and you're trying to resolve an autoimmune condition, but you're not really that interested in a super intense and strict diet, then start with that homesteader diet. If you get better, great. If you don't, then you're probably going to want to try that tribal paleo diet. And if you get better, great. And if you don't, you're going to have to try that scavenger diet. And if that doesn't work, you're going to have to go with the anti-inflammatory diet, or what I like to call the Ice Age diet. If you're dealing with something really chronic, really complicated, or really scary and serious like cancer, my recommendation is start with an anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense, relatively ketogenic diet like the Ice Age diet, and then after maybe a week or two, move towards that scavenger diet and stay there for maybe even a couple of months, and then shift it up towards that tribal paleo diet. And if you're still doing well, shift it up towards that healthy homesteader. And if you're still doing well, eat like that for the rest of your life. Because honestly, that's probably the healthiest diet for modern humans who don't want to give up grains and dairy. So I just want to go into a little bit more depth about the anti-inflammatory diet, because that's really where we all have to start if things are complicated. And if that's true for you, I'm sorry to hear that. But 85% of my patients who do this get amazing results. So it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's really worth it. In my practice, I always tell people to start with the do's and then work on the don'ts. It's a lot easier to begin by focusing on what you know is going to help you, and then to gradually pick away at the things you know are probably not helping you at all. The sooner you can do that, the better, but instead of waiting until you've gotten rid of the bad stuff, you might as well start today with as much of the good stuff as you can do. So here's some of the do's for an anti-inflammatory diet. Drink at least 2 liters of water and 1 liter in the first 2 hours. Make your diet as close to an intermittent fasting lifestyle as you can. That's going to change amazing things about your metabolism, especially around inflammation. If you're carrying around a lot of belly fat, then focus on that as a part of your strategy, because fat cells actually produce molecules that tell your body to focus on more inflammation. When it comes to food, think of that living at a beach during an Ice Age diet. Lots of cold water fish. Lots of vegetables, especially greens, things like kale and spinach and chard. Focus on cucumbers and celery and broccoli and cabbage and carrots. If you like fruit, focus on berries. You want to keep the sugar low, but the nutrient density as high as you can. Avocados and sweet potatoes are also anti-inflammatory, and they're nice and filling as well. Spices like ginger and turmeric are also anti-inflammatory, but turmeric's tricky. It actually only works when you mix it with some other things. So if you want, look through the search bar on the website here at the Integrative Health Detective website and look for golden milk. There's a recipe for high potency or medical grade golden milk that is the most anti-inflammatory thing that you could actually ever make in your own kitchen. So make some of that and you'll notice pretty quickly what it's going to do for you. And don't forget about rest and play. Those are essential to being healthy and happy people have a lot less inflammation. So here are the don'ts. Don't eat sugar. Don't use alcohol. Try and avoid excessive caffeine. Avoid wheat and dairy, especially in the Western world. They've been hybridized and bred into a kind of metabolic corner that makes them very high in neurotoxins and inflammatory molecules. So wheat and dairy, everyone always says stop them, and there's reasons why. It's not just a fad. Grains in general are really good at defending themselves, which means they're really good at attacking you. So if you're trying to avoid inflammation, step back from grains for a while. You might notice a big difference just doing that. Avoid fried foods and especially deep fried foods. Damaging those fats is really a high inflammatory endeavor, and most restaurants, if you're eating out, use the cheapest, most rancid, and most inflammatory oils, I'm sorry to say. And barbecues, I'm also sad to say, are the most inflammatory way of cooking your food. Barbecues, more than any other way of cooking, create what are called advanced glycation end products, which are profoundly inflammatory. They trigger a lot of deeper reactions that can lead to more high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease, and they're also linked with Alzheimer's. So as much as we all love a good barbecue, if you love it, try and have that less, if not at all, for at least a few months. If you want to learn more about what I do and how I can help you, please download the free ebook on the Ancestral Autoimmune Protocol. And if you really want some support, I have a 500 recipe cookbook. It's called Returning to an Ancestral Diet, and that should get pretty much anyone started on what they need to do. Thanks for watching. If you feel like you need some more support, find a functional medicine, integrative medicine clinician near you who does this kind of work. If you want to reach out to my team, it is possible to make an appointment. It just sometimes takes a while. Again, thank you for watching and have a meaningful day.